Hi, my name is Dr. Daniel Fox, I'm a licensed psychologist in the state of Texas and an expert in the area of personality disorders. And today we're going to talk about the intersection of BPD and ADHD. And in this video, we're going to examine that overlap. Now, this is a complicated combination and it poses a lot of challenges to not only the individuals who have both of these diagnoses or one of the other, and they're trying to tease them out, but also those mental health providers and those health providers that are also trying to treat them and work with them so that they can do things differently and be able to have more control over themselves and their life. And it is my hope that this video will help you do that. And if you like the video, I hope you'll check out some of my other ones or subscribe. And of course, as always, please leave any comments. I try to read them as much as I can, but also I know that the comments are really helpful to other folks who watch the videos as well. So let's get to it. So ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is a neurodevelopmental disorder, and it is characterized by inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. Now BPD is characterized by erratic and dramatic responses to internal and external stimuli. And you think, so okay, you've described both these both of these disorders, and how can they overlap? They are described so differently, but there is a lot of confusion, and we're going to keep going into that. And what the research has found is that 60% of those that are diagnosed with BPD as adults were diagnosed with ADHD in children. That's 60%. That's a lot. Now, about 18 to 27% of adults with ADHD have comorbid BPD. That's also a lot. It can be as much as a quarter of those with ADHD also have BPD as well. Now, individuals with ADHD and BPD tend to have more problems in school, more problems at work. They're at greater risk for substance abuse. They have more negative interactions with police. So there's a lot of personal ramifications to this as well. Now, they also have more issues with relationships, and that's a very, very complex area for them. So you see that these two disorders, even on their own, can be very disruptive. But together, I think it really exacerbates and makes it much more complex and difficult for those individuals to manage, to identify, and build that sense of knowledge and control. And that's what we're doing here. We're building that sense of knowledge and control. And there is a lot of confusion, as I mentioned, about that intersection between BPD and ADHD. Now, in adolescents and adults, it's difficult to distinguish ADHD and BPD because both disorders, they share a lot of surface structure features such as disorganization, impulsivity, social intrusiveness, emotional dysregulation, and cognitive dysregulation. And emotional dysregulation, so I'm going to define emotional dysregulation, cognitive dysregulation for you. So emotional dysregulation, now these are angry outbursts or behaviors such as destroying or throwing objects, aggression towards self or others, and threats to kill oneself. Now, cognitive dysregulation, this is paranoia and disassociation, for example. Okay, so distinguishing characteristics between BPD and ADHD are those issues often seen in those with BPD. So what we need to do is we're going to separate BPD from ADHD to help you sort of identify that. And this is where my approach, and if you see my other videos, that I talk about core content and surface structure content. And surface structure, what we just talked about, those surface structure behaviors, right, that they're very similar. That's where a lot of confusion is. And I think that is for most disorders, particularly when we're talking about personality disorders, because personality disorders are driven by core content. And core content for BPD tends to be abandonment, emptiness, worthlessness, and it's different for everybody. And that's why it's so important to identify what your core content is. It really builds a sense of knowledge, and that knowledge helps you build empowerment to control your behavior and have better control over your life. Okay? But so that core content of BPD is driving that surface structure behavior. But it's that overlap. It's that complex combination that makes it so difficult, that comorbidity of BPD and ADHD. And impulsivity is the greatest overlap. And we see this, it's in a lot of the research. I put two research studies, citations, at the end of the comments section for you to check out if you want to read more about this. And impulsivity, though, is consistently identified in both through the research. Now, tends to be the root of all of this confusion. Although it has the same name, it is very different in surface structure presentation related to that core content. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about ADHD impulsivity, BPD impulsivity as well, to give you a flavor for it, a little flavor for you. Okay, so ADHD. Now, impulsivity in ADHD includes this, you run around or you may climb in situations where it's inappropriate, adolescents or adults. It's often, you get this feeling of being restless, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go. Okay, you're unable to play or engage in leisure activities quietly. Okay? So you're into a lot of things, moving a lot of things, disrupting a lot of things. You're often on the go as if driven by a motor. Now you're unable to be, or you're uncomfortable for extended amount of time. This can be like in restaurants, airplanes, or meetings for adults, right? That you're trying to sit quietly and listen, but you can't. You got to go, right? Maybe you're a clicker, a pen clicker. Right? Or are you a tapper? Right? It's this restlessness. It's that impulsivity. You gotta go. And you can't relax. You can't slow down. Now, you may be seen as restless or difficult to keep up with because you're on the go. Okay? These folks are on the go. Okay? And talks excessively. You complete other people's sentences to try to hurry along that conversation. You cannot wait for your turn in conversations. You blurt out answers before the question is even completed being asked. You have difficulty waiting your turn if you're in line, playing a game, or even for an event to come up. You're just ready. You're like, okay, I'm ready. Gotta go. Gotta get in there. Gotta get involved. Gotta get active. Gotta do. So you go. And the last one is that you butt into conversations, games, or activities. Now you interrupt or intrude on others. In adolescents or adults, you may interfere or take over what other people are doing. So that's ADHD impulsivity. Now let's discuss BPD impulsivity. Now in BPD impulsivity, it's in at least two potentially damaging areas. Okay, so it can be on spending sprees, it can be sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, binge eating. Now, this may sound like, well, isn't that a manic episode? Those can be components of a manic episode. I did do a video on bipolar disorder and BPD. I'll put that link here. But this is different because what this is that you see that it's a continuance of behavior to engage in these things, whereas manic episodes tend to be episodic, right? So manic episodes, you see that you hit that high for a period of time, and once that period of time is over, it starts to slide down. They're episodic. In bipolar disorder, BPD, they're not. They're responses to go, and you're impulsive, and a lot of times there are situational triggers that set you off. So that's what we're talking about here, that impulsivity. Okay, and again, just to quickly go over it, right? It's spending sprees, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, and binge eating. But it's also acting on the spur of the moment in response to immediate stimuli. Something shows up, you do it. Okay? You're acting on a momentary basis without a plan or consideration of outcome. You have difficulty establishing or following plans. It's a sense of urgency. Sometimes this can include self-harming behaviors when you're under emotional distress. Now, another component to consider, particularly for those with BPD, is anxiousness. Anxiousness can drive impulsivity. It's this tea kettle, right? So my grandma, she used to have this old coffee pot. It was this big silver coffee pot, and you plugged it in, right? It wasn't a K-cup. I mean, this is the 70s. Come on. But and it was this coffee pot, and you would plug in this coffee pot, right? And then it had this little clear top, tiny little clear top. And when the coffee was ready, it would start to, you could see it percolate and pop in there. And I think for BPD, this is an image that when I'm working with my clients or I'm talking to somebody, and I think, oh, that's my grandma's coffee pot, because it's percolating. And I think this anxiousness is part of what sets off that percolate. And if you were to pull off my grandma's coffee pot, the coffee would pop out. And that's BPD, right? It's that anxiousness, going, gotta go, right? And then you take off the top and out you go. And that's that impulsivity. Now let's talk about anxiousness. Is that your drive to react carelessly. That's kind of what it is when we talk about anxiousness to impulsivity. Now anxiousness in BPD, this is intense feeling of nervousness and tenseness or panic, often in reaction to interpersonal stress or worry. So you're worried about something maybe about a friend, a loved one, a text that was not responded. We talked about social media just very recently. I'll put a link here if you want to see that. And about responding to social media, or about some social interaction or an issue that happens at work, or whatever that interpersonal world is that creates that anxiousness that drives that impulsivity. So it also can be worry about the negative effects of past unpleasant experiences and future negative possibilities. A lot of folks with BPD, they tend to be very pessimistic about the future. They tend to think that this is something I'm going to have my whole life, and this is something there's nothing I can do with, and there's something that I can't help, and there's something that I'm just sort of stuck to and chained to, and I'm just going to have to do what it tells me to do, and I'm just going to have to be forced to. That's when people come to me and we're like, whoa, we got to slow it down. Because we've got to slow it down. I'm going to do a video on slowing yourself down so that your BPD, that BPD lens, we talked about that before as well, that doesn't have so much control. So you can build this sense of control. You can manage BPD because you can. Okay, but I'm not done. I got more on anxiousness. Okay? And it's feeling fearful as well, apprehensive, or threatened by uncertainty. It's also fears of falling apart or losing control. It's like you can't hold it anymore, so you engage in impulsivity, right? It goes back to my grandma's coffee pot. Now, I hope that this has helped you, right? Does this help you get the difference between the two, between ADHD and BPD? You can really get a sense of the feel for it as we went through it. And now this is not to diagnose yourself. This video is not for you to say, okay, see, well, I do have BPD, I do have ADHD. What this is, it's to help you gain knowledge and build insight, to help you understand parts of yourself and your core content that drives that surface structure behavior, because that is critical. And we know that BPD and adult ADHD have distinct and specific underlying patterns of personality traits and personality pathology. Knowing this can help you identify the different aspects of your own personality, right? Whether it's BPD traits, whether you also have ADHD, or if you don't. And this can help you build that sense of understanding into those maladaptive and adaptive tendencies. What we want to do is we want to decrease maladaptive tendencies and increase adaptive tendencies. And that's where we get that sense of control. That's where you get that sense of control on BPD. Okay? And it's really critical. And it is where this knowledge can help you feed your empowerment to get and gain a greater sense of control over yourself and your life. I hope you found this video helpful. Please leave any comments and subscribe, and thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.